So next up, we've got Baby Blues, which also goes by the alternate title Cradle Will Fall. It's a movie about a mother struggling with postpartum depression. While her husband is away, she unleashes a homicidal outburst upon her 4 children, who must find a way to survive the night. Once again, this is a fairly controversial movie, but definitely not a very well-known movie. In fact, I'm quite surprised that no one really talks about this movie. I think it is actually somewhat of a hidden gem. I actually had to go back to one of our old defunct forums, because I did review this a long time ago, and it looks like I reviewed it back in November 2008. And I had a look through my review, and it seems everything I was saying about the movie then is still more or less what I thought about the movie now, which I think is a good thing, because my first viewing, I really enjoyed it, and I've since watched it maybe 3-4 times at least since then, and I still find it to be a fairly good movie. It moves at a fairly quick pace.
Very quick pace, yeah.
Yeah, not too many dull moments or slow moments in the actual movie itself. When did you first check this movie out?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I suspect I probably saw it in October during one of the October challenges I partake in. I do remember I thought it was a very good movie, and despite some people saying, because I've seen some very angry reaction to this movie, and you may have seen the same thing. Some people say, this movie should have even been made, just disrespectful to women who go through this. And, I found it, I watched it, and I thought it was a pretty tense, pretty thrilling movie. Despite the quality, which isn't the highest, it's a very well done movie. And sort of uses characters as the central, or uses kids as the central characters. And for the most part, they all work out, as decent as you can, expect kids to. I don't know, this feels like a very sort of claustrophobic, very real movie. It's not a huge cast, and I think it's a very focused movie. It knows what it's going for. I do think the final sequence, sort of like an aftermath type thing, I didn't necessarily care for that finale, but I do think most of the movie is, pretty top notch.
By the ending sequence, are you talking about the explosion part, or just before the credits?
Yeah, I'd say later in the hospital.
Okay, I thought that was actually quite. I guess I would call it more of a terrifying cliffhanger. I don't want to spoil it, but just with the thought of, being that kid, that's got to be tough.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is probably one movie that will not see a sequel. Can you imagine them trying to make a sequel of this?
I think I can, but because
like a sci-fi original, Baby Blues 2.
Who'd have really imagined this movie in the first place?
And actually, now that you mention that, I'm surprised it hasn't been done before. And maybe it has. If you know of a movie that has the same plot, let me know.
Yeah, I think initially when I saw it, I could kind of understand how a lot of people might have been outraged or find it very tough to watch, but it's purely because it's little kids rather than adults. It basically being in a slasher movie.
Yeah, I'll say that I didn't have nearly as much trouble watching this as I did I Spit in Your Grave. This is so much, I don't know, not necessarily mainstream, but it feels so much easier to watch for me.
Yeah, there are some kill scenes in the movie. They're fairly quick, and if you swap certain characters for adults, you probably would say the kill scenes are quite tame.
Yeah, I will say I thought the body count was surprisingly higher than you might expect. Because, like I said, I'd seen this movie before, but it's been at least 5-6 years, so I actually forgot all of what went down. So that's sort of a nice surprise.
But like you're saying, it does have somewhat of a cheap, low-budget feel, but I think they make the use of that really well. In the latter parts of the movie, she kind of transforms into quite a frightening type character, like almost somewhat demonic sometimes when you look at her as she kind of slips back and forth between angry and nice, trying to lure out her kids, so...
Yeah, I'll say that's an actress, I don't know, it's a woman by the name of Colin Porch, but she did a fantastic job. like a fantastic job at this movie. I don't know if she's been in many other things, but she should definitely get more work after something like this.
I think she's had like a bunch of small roles in some pretty big films, and I saw she was in one of the Transformers movies. And,
Oh boy.
But
I said she should move up, not move down. But
yeah, I guess depending how you look at it. I think if you look at it just from an actor being paid, being in that type of movie is probably a step up, even though she would have had a significantly smaller role, I'm guessing. But anyways, yeah, I think the movie, for the most part, is quite realistic. Except there is a scene towards the end with an explosion that I think probably should have resulted in a lot more damage to the people involved. It kind of almost looks like that explosion had no effect on anyone. But yeah, I think another thing to mention is there's a trailer for this movie. There may be multiple trailers, but there are a few movies out there which have trailers that I think are actually quite good, and I think this is a movie that has a fairly good trailer. They've got typical voiceover guy, and he's going through the list of all the different symptoms of postpartum depression, and he's going through the list, and he's like, they have thoughts of suicide and thoughts of homicide.
well, you can see why some people might call it tasteless, but
I'd encourage people to at least check out the trailer, and because I think in the grand scheme of things, while it's not going to make any, well, outside of maybe a select few, it's probably not going to make anyone's all-time favorite list, but I think a lot of people would be somewhat surprised at how good this movie actually is for such a low-budget film.
Yeah, the real question is, which movie is more depressing, Eden Lake or Baby Blues?
Probably Eden Lake. I think for me, just because this one, outside of a few minutes earlier in the film, it kind of plays out just more like it starts to feel like more of a slasher movie than anything else. And while the ending certainly does end on a down note, who knows what happens moving forward? Whereas with Eden Lake, we know what happens. So, and I guess another thing to mention, and obviously I mention this whenever we watch one of these movies, the setting of this movie, I grew up on a farm, so it's very similar to where I grew up, and I've talked about how I step on rusty nails, things like that. That actually happens to that boy in this movie, so he steps on a plank of wood with a nail out of it. And
no, I do have two questions for you in your experience. Have you ever been stabbed with a pitchfork?
No. So what?
Have you ever been chased by one of those machines?
I've been chased by a plank of wood by my dad.
Speed of a childhood memory.
All the things minus the homicidal behavior, probably something I'm familiar with. Where he's hiding in the chicken coops. We had similar type of chicken coops, so, just seeing those scenes reminds you of the smell and everything.
Yeah, I'll say to the Americans in the audience, this movie was actually filmed in Savannah, Georgia, so it has a very, very southern feel to it, and you can definitely tell with the accents of many of the characters that it's a very, sort of southern movie, which I sort of appreciate. It gives it at least a little extra kick, in my opinion.
Yeah, Baby Blues is a movie that I think flies under the radar and is actually quite a good movie, especially for its low budget. Well, for its low budget. The mother and the main boy in the movie, I think, do a really good job in the film. I'm constantly trying to look for people breaking character or, seeing if they slip up anywhere or if they're unconvincing in certain parts of the movie, and I think they're quite consistent throughout the movie. It does have quite a terrifying cliffhanger, I thought, and while it's a movie that's not going to, break my all-time favorite list, I think it is a very good movie, so I give it an 8 out of 10.
I feel much the same way. I think it's a good movie. I've enjoyed it both times, and like Chucky, I'm going to give this one an 8 out of 10. There's a lot about Baby Blues that is worth liking despite its somewhat unassuming nature. The main actors are pretty good, and even some of the smaller characters are decent. There's one character in the movie, sort of an older man, who spent like half his screen time getting high and listening to music. And I have to be honest, I sort of like that guy. He's probably, it's an actor that not many people know by the name of, I think, Gene Whitman. But I sort of just like his small scenes, and how anybody just enjoying his life. The violence in the movie can come across as a bit much, but honestly it's pretty tame, all things considered. I think the scene that got to me the most was a scene involving the pitchfork, just because while you can sort of see it coming, at the same time you're thinking, are they really going to do that? There's a lot of great performances in the movie. If the idea of a mother going after her children because of sort of like a mental breakdown disturbs you, I would definitely stay away from this one. But it's a very tense, atmospheric movie, and like we said earlier, it's pretty digestible.